on oil. The world's major oil exporting countries, in a surprise move, announced they will cut production. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies, known as the OPEC Plus, will slash oil production starting May. The cuts will last through the end of 2023 and come on top of the reductions announced last October. CNN Business reports oil prices spiked in Asian trade today following the recent announcement. Let's now get the thoughts of Pete Ilagan, president of the National Association of Electricity Consumers for Reforms, or NASECORE. Sir, good evening. Oil prices spiked
Good evening.
during...
Good evening, Menchu.
Nice to have you on the program, sir. Well, as we said, oil prices spiked during trading on Monday following the announcement of OPEC Plus to cut output. So what does this mean for an oil import-dependent economy like the Philippines?
Well, that's really sad. We have been met with this kind of occurrences, not only this time, but in the past years. So I'm sure our government is ready to meet squarely this cut in the production of oil from the OPEC, with an equal reduction in our fuel consumption. I'm sure the government can come up with a policy on how to meet this equally with the same effort of reducing our fuel consumption, because this oil price increase will be again another blow upon our commuters, upon our jeepney drivers, taxi drivers, bus drivers, upon our industries that are heavily dependent on oil, and especially at this time when our very own electricity rates are going up. Like, for example, Meralco's rate for March is 7.37 from 5 pesos 2 years ago. We are now more than 7 pesos because of their contracted generation plants that are coal and oil based. So the government must do something now in order to cushion the impact of this upon our people, especially on our economy. We're going to have another setback if we do not meet this with equal effort on how to cushion the impact of this oil increase.
All right. You said that the government must act now and really to be able to handle this development. So how exactly can the country respond to less oil production, in particular the government, as it makes sure that supply is enough?
Well, instinctively, I could think of the president making an economic appeal to the Filipino people that we should be all united in this effort of cutting down on unnecessary expenses on fuel consumption, unnecessary travels that will require oil consumption. So the president can make an economic appeal to not only to the big businessman, but to the common tao, the motorists, to cut down on their travels. So the OPEC will also recognize how we are equally responding to their decision to cut their production. Economic appeal from the president would have a very big impact on the Filipino people. We can cut down on expenses that are not necessary, that would require fuel consumption that we are importing. And at the same time, again, we should expect from the government subsidy upon the public utilities like the jeepneys and taxis and drivers, so that they will also be able to survive the impact of this oil price increase.
Well, fuel runs most economic inputs: electricity, transport, machinery, just to name a few. What else can be done in the short term so there will be less dependence on fuel?
Well, in the electricity sector, the Department of Energy and Energy Regulatory Commission should be serious enough in reviewing all the power supply contracts that are coal and based plants. It's because their rates now are becoming very, very unpredictable, which would make investors hesitant and reluctant in infusing new investments in the country. Businessmen rely on studies where they have projections, where they have predictions of how much they will be able to recover based on what they see on hand. And if the rates of electricity is this unpredictable, it's going to be a way of discouraging investors to infuse new investments in the country.
But the country is not lacking in energy sector reform. So what else needs to be done to cushion the impact of developments in the global oil market in the short term and the long term?
Well, the Department of Energy can look for other resources, like there should be a more aggressive development in the utilization and adoption of renewable energy, where we do not need to import because it's available in our own country. It's our own resources, indigenous resources. That can be a strong policy on for an aggressive development of renewable energy in the country. That's one, like the hydropower, the solar and wind, and other types of renewable energy.
Well, you mentioned earlier that the oil situation also has a lot to do with consumption. So what should be the response on the demand side so that Filipinos can be more conscious of how they consume this dwindling and expensive commodity?
Well, all motorists should in their own way, cooperate and support the government's effort in cushioning the impact of this oil price increase. As I've said, all of us must adopt some cut down on our unnecessary travel, any expenses that would require oil consumption.
We just returned
So this is one thing that every motorist, every Filipino can do in order to support the government's effort in cushioning the impact of this price increase in oil.
Because we just returned to on-site work, more of the on-site work following the easing of restrictions. Do you think that the way to go is to go back to work from home setups?
That's one way. And another measure that we have adopted in the past was the carpooling. Work from home is a very good way of meeting this situation, because workers have they just need to stay at their respective homes and still deliver the same work expected of them. That's really nice, Menchu.
All right.
To retain, to a certain extent, this work from home system.
Arrangement. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Pete Ilagan of NASECORE.